I'm about to convince you to make bagels at home. I know it sounds crazy because really you could pretty much buy bagels in lots of places. But if you happen to not live in New York and not have access to the best bagels ever, you may want to consider making them at home. I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. Okay, so bagels are really very simple. They're a mix of flour and salt and yeast, and we're gonna mix that together. Now, bagels are ubiquitously Jewish. The first time we hear about a bagel, I'm just gonna let it mix all together. The first time we hear about a bagel is in 1610 in the Community Journal of the city of Krakow, where they say that the appropriate gift to give to a mother who's in labor and the midwife is a bagel. Don't read into that too much. So we've got a bagel and it becomes the Jewish bread. I've just added a tablespoon of oil and my sugar to warm water. So it's nice and warm. And that's going in. And by the way, I'm done. Now the food processor, the mixer has to do the rest of the work. For the next, we need to lock it into place. For the next 10 minutes, this is gonna happen. But it would be better had I locked the bowl into place. So what happens is that in the community, you could buy lots of bread in bakeries, but a bagel is that bread that you make at home. It's the one thing that because of the boiling process, you get this really chewy, crusty outside. What happens is that when you boil a bagel before you bake a bagel, the yeast on the outside stops forming, so you get that chewy crust. And housewives would have made the bagels at home, and then they would, with the hole in the middle, which made it easier to handle and sell, send their children and their husbands out to the street to peddle bagels. Not until 1930s to the 1950s. The 1950s is the first time the New York Times mentions a bagel. They weren't everywhere. It was really just the Jews. And it becomes this bread that every bakery in America, you can pretty much buy a bagel now, and around the world. It's amazing, and I love the fact that Jewish food has influence all over the world. So this is gonna happen, come on closer, for the next 10 minutes until we get a smooth and shiny dough. Unlike challah dough, where you want it a little liquidy and a little movable, this is a stiff dough, and kind of like the Jews, stiff-necked people. Am kashay oref, it's called in Hebrew. So we're gonna let this go for 10 minutes, and then we'll see what it looks like 10 minutes in. My dough has been kneading for about 10 minutes, and it's totally smooth now. And of course, I'm a little bit worried about my mixer because it's gotten very hot. That was a lot of hard work. I'm gonna knead it for just 2 seconds on the counter, and it's a tough and heavy dough, which is what you want for a bagel. You need to use, pun there, intended. You need to use the strong white flour. You could do strong brown as well, but it needs to be the high gluten flour to get this very stiff, very heavy dough. I'm going to let it rise in an oiled bowl for an hour, at which point we will shape our bagels. How exciting is that? All right, so my bagel dough has risen. It looks amazing. One of the ways to test is stick 2 fingers in it, and if the indent stays, which it is, then your dough has risen. I've got a pot of water, just a pot of water, with 2 tablespoons of sugar boiling, and that's gonna be my boiling liquid. So out comes the dough. And this is one of those kitchen tools I love. If you bake, these are amazing. They just divide up the dough really easily. So I'm gonna divide my dough into 4 pieces. And then we're going to start rolling. Now, bagels, the ones that you would have had in Europe were smaller than the American bagel. Big surprise. But the ones you get here in London, the boiled ones, are actually quite small. And there was this old Yiddish saying that said that one bagel isn't enough to satisfy a person. You absolutely needed 3. So obviously someone with a Yiddish saying after my own heart. So I've rolled it out. Don't worry, this isn't one bagel. I'm going to then divide it into 3, and I'm gonna roll again. And it's a tough dough. So I'm gonna start by letting it rest in between each of these rolls. So we're gonna roll out again. And every time I let the dough rest, it'll become a slightly more manageable. It's a great tip for challah dough. If you find that it's a little too hard to handle, let it rest. It'll, come back on itself really nicely. And again, and we're gonna do that with the remainder of the dough. So let's discuss the hole in the bagel. Why a hole in the bagel? And it's really interesting. It's actually, I believe, for practicality's sake and nothing else. If you recall, it was the women who were making these bagels at home and not in bakeries, and sending their children and their husbands out to then sell the bagels. And one of the ways they did, they built these contraptions with like dowels in them, and the bagel would have slotted into the dowels. I even seen a picture, if I'm not mistaken, of a person wearing the bagels as a necklace, a bagel necklace. Oh my God, wild. Okay, so here's my dough. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to roll it out and taper the sides of it. So can you see it's rolled and tapered at the ends? And then I'm going to bring it together and basically roll the ends together. And you could pinch, you could roll, whatever way you have of getting your bagel ends together. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to lower expectations a bit. If your bagel doesn't stay a bagel, that's okay too. It's still gonna taste like a bagel, but let's work a little bit more on getting it. So I try every conceivable way of getting the ends together. So I pinch, I prod, I roll, anything to get those ends to kind of adhere to each other. So that one's good, and we're gonna keep on going. And once again, I'm rolling in order to get these really nice tapered ends. This one's gonna be better than the first. And then I'm going to basically roll my hand inside it. And that is a great looking bagel. And again, we're gonna keep on going until they are all rolled. And hopefully by then, my water will have boiled. So the tapered ends are pretty important because that's what's gonna keep them binding together. And once more, and the reason it's not sticking is because, again, this is a bagel dough. It's not sticky. It's really quite tough, like us Jews, right? So my really tough bagel dough, and you don't have to be Jewish to enjoy a bagel. We know that, right? I think there are bakeries everywhere nowadays that sell bagels, and even in places where there is no Jewish community. So hurrah for the bagel. And we're just gonna keep on going. My bagels have been rising under a towel for a few minutes. My water is boiling. Oh my gosh, we're doing bagels. Okay, so it goes in to the boiling water for like 30 seconds on each side. And then you flip it over. That's it. I know it doesn't seem like much is happening, but what's happening is that the yeast on the outside of the bagel is stopping its like yeastiness, and you can see it looks like it developed some cellulite, and on it goes. I'm gonna do a few more bagels at a time, and at this point, this is when, if you're gonna do any toppings, they need to go on really quickly and right now, otherwise they won't adhere, because this is what, there's no egg on the outside of the bagel. Okay, flip these guys over, make sure that they get that cellulite, gorgeous texture. Trust me, it'll disappear in the oven, but this is what a bagel is. It's gotta be boiled. I've actually been very disappointed when I've gone to places that claim to sell bagels and they're not boiled. And you can always tell, always, always, always. What I have here is everything but the bagel spiced. How cool is that? Okay, in we go with another few of them. And they are going to be delicious. Like, I cannot even explain to you how good homemade bagels are. I'm really tempted to send my husband out to peddle the bagels, but he may have some stiff competition from the real bagel sellers here in London who make awesome bagels. But this is a bit of a vanity project here, making my own bagels at home. And just because, how can we talk about Jewish food and not talk about the bagel? What's really interesting is that in Europe, they wouldn't have actually filled the bagel. They would have just eaten it as is. And it's only when it comes to America that they decide to fill the bagel. What I read was that the Sunday morning breakfast used to be like eggs Benedict with ham and hollandaise sauce. So Jews being Jews, we decided that we're gonna use our bagel as a base, and we're gonna cover the bagel with a schmear of cream cheese instead of the hollandaise sauce, and lox instead of the ham. So hurrah for the person who decided to make, you know, that eggs Benedict thing into a Jewish dish, because what is better than bagels and lox? And what is better than homemade bagels and lox? And our next recipe is gonna be lox, obviously. So as I finish up the boiling process, these are going to go in the oven, and I've turned up, like I whacked up my oven all the way. It needs to be super hot. If you have like a pizza stone, which I lost mine somewhere along the way, stick that in the oven. It's gonna get your oven even hotter. And they're going to bake for about 10 minutes. Last two guys going in, and the bagelness of this Sunday morning is happening right here, right now. How exciting is that? And you can see with the ones I made, the first one, it's already dry on the outside, so you really gotta go in with your toppings as soon as it comes out of the water. Let's flip these guys and flip once more, and out they come, and they are nearly ready to go in the oven. How much fun was that on a Sunday morning? I'm going to send you guys pictures, possibly, but not certainly, smeared with cream cheese, covered in lox. Oh my God, how good are Sunday mornings. See you soon.